Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 5355. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, very good. Welcome to Kentucky's Voice, Kentucky's and Louisville's only program that deals with news and politics from a conservative perspective. And so we appreciate you joining us today. I'm your host, Tom Fallbush. Today I do Thursdays. I'm the Thursday guy. So, I want to point out the change in my attire today. I've got a little, it looks like a MAGA hat, but it's actually MAPA. Make America Pray Again. There you go, if you notice that. It's kind of cool. And I think that's exactly what we need. We need to make America great. Well, but what makes America great is our spiritual heritage and the fact that we're a good people. And you can't be good without a spiritual heritage, without religion. And you can debate me on that, but I'm sorry. Without you need in order to have virtue. Our founding fathers said, in order to have virtue, you need to have a religion. And in order to have religion, you need freedom, you need liberty, and in order to have liberty, you have to have virtue. So it all circles around. So you can't be a good people unless you're a religious people, but you can't have good religion unless there's liberty. So people are free to choose what religion they choose, and we hope they choose the Lord Jesus Christ, the Christianity, which I personally am convicted to believe that is the true faith, and it's just, if you really seriously seek truth, I think you'll find Jesus, but also with liberty, obviously, in order to have good religion, you got to have liberty, but in order to have liberty, you have to be a good people. So it's a circular thing. You can't have one without the other, and that's one problem America's having. We're no longer we're becoming less and less a good people, right? And because we're becoming less and less religious. And as we become less and less religious, we suddenly have to think about, well, we can't have all these freedoms we used to have. Maybe we can't allow Second Amendment rights. Maybe we can't allow this, that, and the other, because people are just acting out. They're all ratchet. They're all crazy. And so we kind of need to come down on them. And so, So there we go. So Make America Great. Also, I want to appreciate a viewer that sent me this wonderful flag. I don't know if you can see this or not. It says Ultra MAGA, and that is awesome. And I'm going to figure out a place to fly this somewhere. So Ultra MAGA, thank you for that viewer for sending that in. And but I tell you what, we're going to talk about some cool stuff today. We're going to talk about Kentucky politics from a very micro local level in Letcher County. You may have heard of this story. There was a sheriff who shot a judge. This happened several months ago, right? Well, it just came out that apparently there's this huge sex ring that was going on in this county with these local, politicians and the sheriffs and all this stuff. And we're going to play you some story about that. But basically, I guess the way to tee this up is you all watched the Dukes of Hazzard, right? You remember Boss Hogg and Roscoe, and a lot of that was kind of based on Southern American small county kind of politics, and especially the early 20th century, every county had its boss, its county judge. They kind of ran the judge. They were all the boss hogs. You always had this corrupt sheriff. You always had this, and you would think, okay, that's from the past. That's like from the 1950s or 30s or something. No, it's still going on in Eastern Kentucky. You still have the boss hog, and you have Roscoe, and in this case, Roscoe shoots Boss Hogg, okay? But it looks like both Boss Hogg and Roscoe were sleeping with all the female inmates that were coming into the jail. And so, tell you what, let me go to this story, and we'll see what's going on down there.
stories. But real quick, a quick recap. Sheriff Sean Mickey Steins shot Judge Kevin Mullins. This was September of last year in Lecter County, Kentucky. It was on surveillance video. There was a camera inside the judge's chamber, and you saw the sheriff go in and shoot the judge, which I've never heard of a sheriff shooting a judge before, which is one of the reasons we started digging into this case. I interviewed, along with Allison, Taya Adams, who was in my last podcast episode, who said she had sex with the judge countless times when she was in jail, when she was trying to get out of charges, that this was just a common thing that people did. It was widespread. Listen again to a little bit of what she said.
So, I mean, you're saying it like it's so normal, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
So the judge would have sex with inmates from the jail?
Yes.
And you saw it?
Yes. I was part of it. I was one of them. Not just from being in jail, like coming in off the street and seeing them. Yeah.
How did they keep it a secret?
It wasn't a secret. Wasn't a secret.
Why did you feel like you had to have sex with the judge?
Because he's the one with the power. He holds my entire life in his hands. He's the one that makes the decisions over whether I get to keep my children or not. He's the one that makes the decisions on whether I go to jail.
Okay, so that was Taya. It was quite an interview that Allison and I did when we were in Kentucky. Allison, you can't see her on video, but she was behind the scenes. But Allison has really been digging into sort of the why behind all of this, because we got so much reaction to our first story, and people wondering, how does this all fit in with why the sheriff may have killed the judge? And there's lawsuits, and there's a lot to it that Allison has dug into. That's why, sorry, I've been talking a lot, Allison. I want to let her talk. I mean, walk us through that. I mean, why? Do we know why?
Well, we kind of know why, and I think we're going to find out more. I mean, we haven't actually heard from Sheriff Stein's lawyer in recent times, and he's getting to the point where they're going to divulge exactly why. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that Sheriff Steins was the only person filed against in these civil rights lawsuits. There were like 2 inmates who filed a civil rights lawsuit, and this is what made the state of Kentucky start to investigate this whole scam, or scheme, I should say. Basically, what we have here is that the sheriff was sued along with Letcher County for behaviors that forced inmates into having sex in order to get drug rehab or home detention, either to go to a drug rehabilitation center or have home detention. So in the process, after this lawsuit, and in the lawsuit, they alleged that Deputy Ben Fields had been forcing these 2 particular victims, allegedly had forced them into having to have sex. He ended up getting convicted, but the lawsuit continued. It was a civil rights lawsuit in federal court, and Sheriff Stein had to be deposed. And a lot of the questions that were going to be asked of Sheriff Stein was, who else was involved in this? Was it just Deputy Ben Fields? And there were a place in the lawsuit like where you could add new people. So what ended up happening is that the sheriff was deposed, and then just a couple days later, he shot the judge. And the nexus there is the sheriff was told not to talk. The sheriff was not to divulge that there were other people involved in this scheme. We don't know how he was told not to talk. We don't know exactly what kind of threats were levied at him. But this has been something that has been out there, that the sheriff went into that depot and he said nobody else was involved. And we even know from the investigation by the state of Kentucky into Deputy Ben Fields that one of the alleged victims said that Judge Mullins was having sex with inmates as well. Other people were involved, according to the victims, and that's how there's a connection.
There we go. Well, we'll stop it there. So it is a pretty interesting story. Like sands in the hourglass, so are the days of Hazard County, Kentucky. Well, it's actually Letcher County, Kentucky. But what's interesting, though, that I'm going to show you on the map where this is. Just kind of fun. I was trying to figure where's Letcher County, it's Whitesburg, right? So it's Whitesburg right there. If you notice, just northeast of Whitesburg, there is Hazard, Kentucky. So not to make light of this whole story because it's really tragic. Someone has been murdered, and whether he's guilty or not, we don't know yet. But of course, a lot of women are been sexually assaulted here by these officials, and so don't mean to make light of this, but at the same time, This is embarrassing for Kentucky. This is, obviously, Eastern Kentucky's always had kind of a impression of being backward, and so and you can see how these small towns, small counties that are kind of ignored by the world can kind of go off the rails, especially with a lot of people that, gain power and want to manipulate power. And this is a story that goes way back in American history. And you want to see something really funny that's kind of similar to this story. There's right after World War II, there was a similar case where you had a real corrupt judge, real corrupt sheriff, and they were shaking down World War II veterans. And this has happened in Eastern Tennessee. And the veterans just came back from World War II. These are bad hombres. And they said, you know what, we just shot up a bunch of Nazis and Japs. We're not going to deal with corrupt judges and sheriffs here. So they basically had a war. They shot it out in Eastern Tennessee. So we've had in there, like I said, the whole Dukes of Hazzard. The whole concept of that show is based on Southern politics, and so having these corrupt local officials that would abuse their power and who kind of ran the town. Boss Hogg ran that county, Hazzard County. Well, this judge ran Letcher County, and if you ended up in his jail, it looks like he and all his sheriffs and deputies got to have their way with you, and it was pretty sick. And I'm glad this has come out, and let's let there be a lesson to any other officials in the state that are doing this kind of crap. Fellow Kentuckians are sick of it. Stop it. Stop it. Step down, and let's get this corrected. So we'll be right back. We're going to talk about the
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise. Speak up and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and we want to encourage you to participate in the program. We have a text line where you can text your thoughts, and we'll read them out on the air. And so if you're listening to us by radio, which is the live version of the program, or streaming online, you can text us at 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. Love to know your thoughts about the Letcher County sex ring and murder that happened down there. That's pretty dramatic stuff. It's a little salacious, a little bit, there isn't a grand political, narrative here other than just corruption, which needs to be dealt with, and it looks like it is. But what a shame and what an embarrassment on this state to have to deal with that kind of stuff. So, but I tell you what, speaking of law enforcement, we've got some news. We have some Breonna Taylor news, and so we're going to talk about a recent judgment that was just made with the two officers that were involved that are being accused by the Department of Justice. They have looks like some of the charges have been dropped, and so we're going to go to a WDRB story here, and we'll tee this up and get our thoughts on this.
Felony charges for two former LMPD officers indicted in connection to the police raid that killed Breonna Taylor. As WDRB's Richard Essex explains tonight, the officers in question wrote and approved the search warrant used by police to burst into Taylor's home.
The search warrant is central to this entire case. The prosecution argues that police never should have been at Taylor's door. The judge disagrees.
They're the strongest search warrants I've ever seen in the 50 years I've been doing this.
Former Louisville Metro Police Detective Joshua James and Sergeant Kyle Meany were accused of providing and lying about false information in a search warrant used by police to enter Taylor's apartment. We now know the warrant falsely claimed a postal inspector had told LMPD that Taylor was getting suspicious packages at her home. Attorney Thomas Clay, who represents James, defends it.
He wrote the affidavit for the search warrant. There were like 6 search warrants, 5 of them were completed, and they were signed by Judge Shaw. One of the best judges we had on the bench, was very thorough in her examination of these search warrant affidavits, and all the search warrant affidavits.
Judge Charles Simpson says searching someone's home without probable cause would result in illegal invasion of privacy, but not in someone's death. Police were looking for money and drugs involving Jamarcus Glover, who was at the center of a narcotics probe by Louisville police. The warrant for Taylor's home was executed around the same time that police served other warrants on suspected drug houses in the city's West End, some 10 miles away. She was Glover's ex-girlfriend, but no money or drugs were found at Taylor's home. Neither Janes or Meany were at the raid of Taylor's apartment, and attorney Thomas Clay says there is more to the story, which will come out in due time.
There are things I would like to say which the ethics prohibit me from saying at this point. All I can say is the ball is back in the Department of Justice's court, and we look forward to proceeding with whatever they intend to do, whether they intend to dismiss this case now or whether they intend to go forward with it. We're going to be there to challenge anything they want to do to Joshua Janes.
Janes is also charged with 2 other felony counts for conspiracy, falsification of records, and misdemeanors for civil rights violations. He faces up to 25 years in prison. In Louisville, Richard Essex, WDRB News.
There we go. So it looks like there's some sanity being brought back to this case, and maybe insanity as it applies to just policing in America. We went through this moment back in the I guess 2020, 2021 during the riots and the Breonna Taylor thing and the George Floyd thing, where this hysteria basically took over the country. And this hysteria of the police are killing black people. And there's this epidemic of abuse of police officers. And it looks like, over time, people have kind of realized, well, maybe that's not exactly what happened. Maybe it's not exactly what happened in this case, even. And plus, we're seeing the results of the the whole effort of defunding the police and just the demoralization of police in general. Of course, LMPD here in Louisville, lost 25% of their force or something. Half of them retired, and the other half quit, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And we've dealt with this for for at least 4 or 5 years now. And so the fact that this case is getting some attention to kind of resolve the, or just at least just bring some justice to it, bring some fairness to it, it is very refreshing. And I think we really need this. And it's unfortunate, I think here's what's going on in culture right now too. You went through this moment in the past decade where you had the left dominate the narrative, and bring all this social justice messaging into pop culture and into social media and into the minds of young people, and basically created this dynamic where there's an oppressor and oppressed. The oppressors are the system, as the man, is the police, and the oppressed are these minority groups, specifically Black Americans and other minorities in cities, and there's just and so people believe that they kind of bought into this because it's a victim narrative, and people are generally want to line up with the underdog and the victim, and it's like yeah, look at these poor people, look at George Floyd getting and look at Breonna Taylor, she was missed. But these things are much more complex, and I think, and I tell you one good thing, social media has of course caused that hysteria. But at the same time, I think the solution is also coming from social media in a lot of ways. And so what's really taken off over the past few years on social media and on YouTube are a lot of these body camera videos and so, ever since George Floyd, ever since, all these events in the past, decade or so, one of the outgrowth was body cameras. So we're going to insist that every officer has a body camera. And so what that has done is given the public and the average person a much clearer view of what police officers have to deal with every day. And if you sit there and watch, hours and hours of this stuff, you're like, first of all, I don't want to be a cop. That is crazy. The stuff they have to deal with and the drama that they got to deal with, and just the nuts out there. And the fact that you can get cynical very quickly, about policing and about the public and about maybe specific groups even, there's a wonderful lady who wrote a book. I forgot her name. She's a professor and wrote a book on crime and was doing an interview. And she said, she made this great point. She was with Dr. Larry Arnn doing an interview. And she said, unfortunately, what happens with just normal policing, if you just police fairly, since there are just higher levels of criminality and crime that occur in certain communities, and she was talking specifically about African-American communities, since there are higher levels of crime in African-American communities, just normal policing will look like that you're over policing a certain demographic. If you take out the fact that there are just higher crime rates in a specific demographic, and you just look at the number of arrests and number of, you would think, well, look, this poor group's getting put upon. They're just really being over policed, but you have to factor in there's just higher level of criminality in those groups for whatever reason. I'm not casting aspersion. There just is. As facts are. I think how many murders committed in the United States. I think half are committed by minorities and specifically African Americans, and it's tragic. I don't celebrate saying that. A lot of people want to dish on African Americans and say, look at them, they're all just terrible. I think that's terrible. That's just these are our fellow citizens, and the fact that there are some dysfunctional family cycles and dynamics that are going on in those communities should break everybody's heart, and because that's where it all starts. It all starts with these family breakdown, and everybody honestly knows that. But the problem is, it's not an easy solution. It's not like an easy. It's easy to just say racism. It's easy just to get the police ginned up and lock everybody up. But it's not going to be a fix to the problem. The fix is generational, and it needs to come from, see my hat here, Make America Pray Again. It needs to come from a real spiritual renewal in America and in the Black community and every community. And that's that.
to Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
All right. Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We were just talking about the Breonna Taylor case, and there's still ongoing. There's still, charges being that are filed against the, the two officers involved, and really that came from the Biden administration, the Biden DOJ. They really came after these officers, and now with the Trump DOJ, there seems to be some resolution to this. It seems to be more of a balanced approach to this, and some of these charges are being dropped, and people are looking at this case a little differently. And so, like I said, we went through a hysteria, kind of a nationwide hysteria over this thought of over policing and persecution of blacks by police officers, and I think we've kind of come to our senses on some level. But I actually got a text come in about this topic. Local media painted a false picture of Breonna Taylor. They never mentioned her drug theft, her bogus EMT status, and most importantly, sadly, her poor choice in boyfriends that ultimately led to her death. Was it her mother while Breonna was running? Where was her mother while Breonna was running with drug dealers? So, yeah, it's a lot of people have those thoughts. It's like but it's tragic. She died, and no one wishes that. And I'm sure those police officers that they surely didn't want to kill her. And that's just, but you got to return fire when people are firing at you. It's just a very complicated case. Police work is very complicated, and I wouldn't want to do it. And hats off to anybody who really wants to do it. And we should celebrate these people. And like I said, body cameras, the best thing to happen in policing. Best thing to happen in policing. I mean, it's just, if you want to go on, and like I said, I warn you, if you get on, watch a lot of these body camera, things, you can get real cynical real quickly. Because it's like, my goodness, it just, well, you get what I'm saying. It just, eventually you get kind of jaded, like, well, okay, I guess everybody's a bunch of criminals here. But anyway, so thankfully there's some sanity coming to this case. So Texas 571-0970, 571. Love to hear your thoughts on this case and anything else. I want to switch to the illegal immigration issue. And of course, we have a story that just broke here recently. I'm sure you've heard about it, about the driver's license scandals. But I'm going to show you what the result of that is. But let me play the story of where we're at right now with the driver's license scandal. And we'll play this from Lexington 18. Let me just say the Lexington 18 has some very pretty anchors. Let me just say that. So here we go.
Several state and federal lawmakers demanded an investigation into a reported fraud scheme involving Kentucky driver's license.
This week, a former Kentucky clerk told a Louisville news station that her coworkers sold undocumented immigrants driver's licenses they couldn't legally obtain. Governor Andy Beshear addressed the situation today, saying, quote, irregularities were found. LEX 18's political reporter Carolina Buchek has the story.
Governor Andy Beshear confirmed that employees have been fired and almost 2,000 driver's licenses or credentials have been revoked.
The revoked credentials, if used, would not work at an airport, would be flagged if pulled over at a traffic stop.
Beshear said the 1,985 driver's licenses were discovered during a routine review of credential applications. A former clerk spoke to WDRB News this week, saying her coworkers were selling those driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants for $200. She told the news station that this happened 4 to 5 times per day for at least 2 years at multiple branches across Kentucky. We asked Beshear today if those revoked driver's licenses were in fact issued to undocumented immigrants, but he said he couldn't fully discuss an ongoing criminal investigation.
But that's part of the investigation, and it's part of a criminal investigation. There are a number of different reasons people might try to get fake identification, and I want to make sure I don't get in front of the Kentucky State Police in their current investigation.
One thing Beshear did confirm is that the employees allegedly involved in the scheme were not state workers. Beshear was asked about this alleged fraud scheme by multiple journalists today, and he repeatedly emphasized that he can't go into too much details because he says all of this is under an active criminal investigation at the moment. In Frankfort, Carolina Buchek, LECT News.
There we go. So there we go. So Kentucky, more corruption in Kentucky, more corruption in Kentucky's political system. And this time as it relates to illegal immigration and giving out driver's license, paid, $200, you get a driver's license for your illegal, And thankfully, we've caught that issue. It's being dealt with. But you know what? Even if Kentucky tightens this up, even if Kentucky stops this practice, and we other states are still doing this, right? And other states are they're okay with just giving licenses to illegals. They have a whole system for it. And let me play another story real quick of what the result of that is. This just happened in Florida. A truck driver does a U-turn, kills a family of 3. And guess what? This truck driver was an illegal immigrant. And guess what? His driver's license was from California, where they're happy to do this. So guess what? Truck drivers drive across the whole country. They drive in Kentucky, And so if they're from California, I'm sure they're driving through Kentucky. So this affects all of us. Every state, has this issue. And let me just play the story, and we'll get a sense of what just happened.
Now been charged after his truck jackknifed a minivan while making an illegal U-turn, killing the 3 people inside the van. The migrant, who is believed to have crossed the border illegally in 2018, was granted a commercial driver's license by the state of California. He now faces vehicular homicide charges and deportation. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier joins me now to talk about this horrific situation. Attorney General, thank you so much for joining us. What was your reaction when you saw this footage and realized this man cost 3 people their lives?
Yeah, it's a horrific situation. California should not have provided this person the driver's license and a permit, not just for a car, but to drive large-scale trucks. To then drive into Florida, engage in this dangerous behavior and take the lives of 3 others is really a tragedy, but it shows how dangerous the open border policies under Obama and Biden have been that have continued to wreak havoc on communities across the country. We're certainly going to charge that person with the heaviest crimes we can and make sure that he gets locked up for as long as possible before then being deported back where he came from.
Yeah, and if you watch this footage, as you did and we just showed, I mean, the people in this black minivan had absolutely no time to react. It was a 30-year-old, a 37-year-old, and a 50-year-old. 2 of them died on impact, and 1 of them died at the hospital. Absolutely tragic situation. And you touched on this. Why, if you cross into the country illegally, are you allowed to get a commercial driver's license in the state of California?
Well, you shouldn't be able to, and we're certainly going to look at ways that we can go after California, fight back, and protect our citizens. Here in Florida, if you're an illegal, you are not going to get a driver's license under no circumstances. We made that law in this state many years ago when we banned the opportunity for sanctuary cities. So it's a tragedy, but when it comes from California, nothing surprises me these days. Gavin Newsom should focus more on rule of law than crying and defending these heinous criminals.
Yeah, well, if he is found guilty of homicide, he will likely serve his sentence in Florida. Can you confirm that he will? And if so, what kind of time is he looking at before he is deported?
Sure. Well, yeah, I can confirm we're not going to deport or let this guy out of our sights until we have convicted him and ensured that he is behind bars for as long as possible, likely the rest
of his life. We'll stop there. But, at the end of the day, giving illegals a driver's license, I'm sure you've heard this term, import the third world, become the third world, right? And if you've ever seen video of India and the way they drive in India, and just look at the streets there, first of all, they may have street signs, they may have stoplights, no one pays attention. It's just a total it's almost like water. Like these streets are just kind of flowing like water, around pebbles, and people are just finding openings and just, that's how they think. It's like, hey, I need to make a U-turn. Okay, let's just do it real quick. That's how my country is what we do. They just gave me a license, so I'm just going to drive like I did in my own country and whatever. And you make a U-turn in the middle of the highway, boom, kills 3 people. Because just tragic, and it's sickening. And in our state, here we are doing, having this illegal driver's license issue, where we're letting people pay to buy a license. It's just sickening. It's like I said, import the third world, become the third world. Not only in driving, just look at our area, our city. If you go to certain parts of our city, it's just the aesthetics of it. I mean, go to Preston Highway. I mean, it just looks like Tijuana. I mean, it's just all the signs are spray painted. It used to be nice, well printed business signs, and now it's like Pedro's Tire Shop, spray painted. And it's just it looks like you're in the middle of Tijuana or something, and it's just. I mean, that's just okay. Oh, you racist. You're just uncomfortable with different cultures. I'm sorry. America built a culture. We built a society that runs well. Where we trust one another. Where we everybody has a certain understanding that we all abide by the same rules, and we sort of aspire to take care of one another on some basic level. And when you have too much immigration. Where assimilation cannot occur, there's no buy-in from these immigrants into our culture, into our way of life. And in matter of fact, they see themselves as the other, and they start developing little enclaves where they sort of see themselves as the counter to the culture. We're anti the mainstream culture. We're this little counter, enclave, a colony in a sense. And so what happens? People become less trusting of the people around them. And so that's why you see suddenly a neighborhood in South Louisville that used to be a working class American white community. You get a whole lot of immigration from the third world. People feel real uneasy, and they end up trying to leave, because it's just they want to feel like they can trust their neighbors. They can relate to their neighbors. They see the world the same way. And we can go into story after story of this kind of these sort of issues. I want to send my kid to a school where they all speak English. Suddenly everybody in my kid's school speaks Spanish. I don't know what's going on. And so this illegal problem. Like I said, the end result is things like this, death. So anyway, so that's our update on illegal immigration today. We'll be right back. We're going to talk a little bit about the Ukraine war and how warfare is changing. Just want to give you a little thought on that and show you a really interesting video. We'll be right back on Kentucky's Voice.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at .org.
That's right. I love this place. That's what my producer said in my ear. And I said, I do too. I do too. I love Kentucky's Voice. I hope you're enjoying this program. I hope you enjoy what we do here. And let me tell you this. We actually have a opportunity for you to get involved. And obviously, we're listener supported. We're viewer supported. We always ask for your financial support. This is a nonprofit. We can't do this just with advertising alone. This is this isn't a huge state, so we don't have a huge audience, but we have an important audience. And so, but we also have an important duty to let people know what's happening in this state from a conservative perspective, from a Christian perspective, and help change the narrative on issues and stories in the state. And we need your help to do that. And so, not only do we need your help financially, which you can support us by going to KY Voice. Or actually, go get you can text us at 53555, 53555, and type in KY Voice, and you can give. And but we're also looking for citizen journalists or people that may want to help participate in the project. There are several, like this whole illegal immigration story. We need a few people on that beat, actually doing some stories every day and doing some investigations, like who's doing all this corruption, and in this town that's letting all this happen. And we just need some people to do it. I mean, if we had the income, we would just hire reporters and do that. But at the end of the day, I think maybe just having some citizen journalists that are really passionate about this would probably make a better impact, because you're doing it for the love of it anyway. But anyway, if you ever felt called to really make a difference on these issues, more than just listening to the radio, listening to talk radio, conservative television, that's great. It's cathartic. You learn a lot. You help. It's encouraging because you hear your opinion voiced by others, so you don't feel like you're alone. So that's very important. But there's also the next step of do something to change it. Do something. Let's get involved to try to move the needle on these things, and you can do that with us, and we would love to have you involved. And we'll set you up. We'll give you cameras. We'll train you how to do it. We'll show you how to edit. We'll show you how to write. You can do social media with us. Whatever you want to do, just give us work with us, and so how to do that? Go to our website, kyvoice.org. There's a link there to volunteer to be a citizen journalist, and love to have your help there. We did have another text come in. Let's see here. It says back then on the Breonna Taylor story, the question is, should the citizens be prepared for more protests and riots in the metro with regards to the outcome of the officer involved with the Breonna Taylor search warrant? I don't know. I think maybe the era of the riot and that whole hysteria is past now. I don't know if that can happen in this environment. I know the far left would love to see it happen. They're organizing right now to try to get that level of attention and energy spun up again. It probably won't happen in the next year or two. It's probably something between the 2026 to 2028 era. You're going to see more of that kind of. But there's a real deliberate effort of all these far left groups to organize and kind of push back against the Trump agenda. And they're facing a lot of headwinds because the country has just went through what they want for the country. We just saw what they wanted, and we don't like it. And so we've repudiated that. We've chosen Trump, and we brought them back in. The whole conservative populist movement is on the ascendant, and also all these left-wing groups are not getting their government money like they used to, right? All these when Doge come in and shut down USAID, a lot of the money that was all these AstroTurf activists ran off of came from groups like USAID and came from your tax dollars. You're basically paying for these protests to happen in your city, So I don't think we're going to see that. I'm sure you'll see somebody come up and make a point about it, but I don't think you'll see the riots as we did in the past. However, we need to be prepared. And I want to say this. I think all of us in this side of the movement, we need to be prepared and have a community around us, people that are like-minded, that are ready to respond to these sort of radical left-wing activists. And I think not in a militant way necessarily, but in an activist way, and that's one thing conservatives have not done. We're kind of, which is, to our credit, we're busy with our lives, right? We work. We actually work for a living. We actually help make the world move and pay for everything for these nuts to go out and protest. So we don't have time a lot of time. We have families. We have, we commit to our church. We commit to our those sort of things. But we need to be thinking about how to push back, because we're in a moment of counter-revolutionary a movement right now, because Trump is a counter-revolutionary. We went through the revolution, the past decade of all the woke business and all the George Floyd riots and all the LGBT stuff and being shoved down your throat and just the globalism and the world government that we've had to live through. Well, the counter-revolution is here, and it takes counter-revolutionaries to fight the counter-revolution. So don't sit back and think, well, Trump's got it. We're all good now. It's just one man. I mean, granted, he's a lot of power, and he's got the government under him now, but still, on a grassroots level and a local level, it's you. It's up to you. And even in this state, we've got a Democrat governor, doing his silliness, King Andy there. And if Mr. Producer, you want to bring up our beautiful picture of King Andy, I'd love to highlight that. Governor Bashir, King Andy there. There we go. We want to pull that up to just remind you of that man's going to try to run for president. Him and Gavin Newsom, and so we got to prevent that from happening. But anyway, I'll tell you what. I want to switch gears real quick. I want to show you something that I want to. Well, I'll tell you before I go to that. Let me real quick. There's something in the news today. Israel is surrounding Gaza City. I want to make a quick comment about that. Israel is determined to occupy Gaza, and they're going to move in and wipe out Hamas, and I think it's wonderful, right? Okay, there's a lot of people on the right that are starting to push back against Israel. I'm not one of them. I think the Israelis have every right to do this, and if any country had a territory like the Gaza Strip next to their border that was lobbing missiles and then launching these horrific terrorist raids, kidnapping, murdering, raping their citizens, any country would invade and occupy and overthrow the government there. Any country would do that. So the fact that, Israel's just, they're genocidal, or they're just putting on these poor Palestinians. Listen, there were no Jews in Gaza. Nobody there. They left. They actually walked out of Gaza. They gave up territory. In 2005, there were a few settlements there. They actually shut those down, and so there we go. And people say, well, you were still occupying them. You had walls all around them. They were you didn't let them get out. No, actually, people in Gaza could actually go to work in Israel. They let them cross the border and go to work in Israel. They had plenty of jobs there. And who was actually harder on the Palestinians in Gaza than Israel? Egypt. Egypt has a border with Gaza in the south, and Egypt's border wall is taller than Israel's because they know these Palestinians are nuts. They're all a bunch of radicals, and they're just, nobody in the Middle East likes the Palestinians. That's the dirty little secret. All the Arab world, they love to tout the Palestinian cause, but none of them like the Palestinians because they're all dysfunctional and they're all ate up with themselves, and no one likes no one likes them. So that's why nobody lets them immigrate into their country. When they do, they keep them in little refugee camps and never let them assimilate into their culture. So it's just, Israel has no choice to do this. And go Israel, occupy Gaza, wipe out Hamas, do what you have been doing, which is a humanitarian approach to war, which is, hello, Gazans, if we're going to invade this area right here, if to be safe, you should leave this area. As a matter of fact, we're going to start bombing now. Ready? We're going to give you a little warning. Here we go. We're bombing now. We're warning you. And matter of fact, hey, you go over here. We'll feed you. We'll actually give you food and water. So, it's just the most humanitarian approach to war. Anybody. No one, like you go to Russia and Ukraine. No one's saying Ukraine's committing genocide for defending themselves against Russia. So it's just nonsense to have all this anti-Israel crap, and I'm just sick of it. And Israel, yes, they can do wrong. It's not like one of these people, Israel can do no wrong. I'm not one of those conservatives in that sense. But in this case, they have every right to do what they're doing, and they should do it. And they've given the Gazans plenty of chance for self-rule and to govern themselves, and they've shown time after time that they're not interested. They just want to kill Jews and wipe Israel off the map. That's all they want to do. And they just say it every day, and they prove it in their actions. And Israel's finally said, well, you know what? Give them a chance. And now they're killing us now. And so we need to do something. We're going to go in and do something. So we're going to solve it long time. So Israel's probably going to occupy Gaza forever. And it's going to be, I'm fine with that. Now the question is what to do about the West Bank. That's a whole other issue. The West Bank's been ran by the Palestinian Authority, which was the old PLO terrorist group, and they seem to be a little more moderate, a little more content with having a state there. But anyway, it's complex. The Middle East is complex, and I've always been sympathetic to the cause of Israel, and it is their land for thousands of years. They've always lived there, and we can go and get into all that later. But okay, I was going to get into warfare. I don't know if we got enough time to do this, but there's a clip I want to show you. I'm going to show you how warfare has changed, and it is we used to think that all we need is Second Amendment, right? We just need our guns if the government ever goes crazy, and so. Well, maybe not, and I'll tell you why. I'll watch this quick clip here, and I'm going to show you what drone warfare looks like from the perspective of someone getting hunted by a drone. So
you can see a motorcycle rider attacking together with other riders in direction of the Ukrainian positions. The motorcycle rider is hit by a first-person view drone, dismounts and tries to evade other drones which are chasing him. And this gives you a good example what it looks like, the situation at the front.
So these Russian soldiers they just got attacked by a drone on their motorcycle. And they're like, okay, we need to just figure this out. All of a sudden they start hearing these drones fly overhead.
Автомат! Автомат!
So, he's saying, hey, shoot him, shoot him. Listen to that sound. It's just dramatic stuff. So they're swooping at them right now. There you go. You see it on the screen. Right over. Imagine you're a soldier, and this thing is flying at you. I mean, it's just terrifying. Here we go.
Автоматически
One more
стреляй.
shot here. He's going to come in and try to. Oh, goodness. There we go. That is modern war. That's warfare today. So I show that in the sense that, if you're into the Second Amendment, you might want to buy a drone because it's you're going to need more than just your AR now to